I think it's a very important quality of the sales team and related to soft skills to be vulnerable and ask the customer, Mr. Customer, would you actually have budget for this product? Do you actually going to buy? Not in the first call, later on, of course, but be vulnerable and ask this question.
Welcome to Altar of the Demo Gods. If you're wondering what advice from two experienced sales engineers sounds like, it's a little like this.
Welcome back to Altar of the Demo Gods. I'm Keith Wilson, joined by my co-host, John Morton. John, how you doing tonight?
Ahoy, hoy, Keith. You know my catchphrase.
Ahoy, hoy, John. John, tonight we have a special guest. You brought him to us. He's the author of the book Architecting Success, The Art of Soft Skills in Technical Sales. And let's bring on, that's the book right there, author Evgeniy Kharam. Evgeniy, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you guys for hosting me today. It's really a pleasure to talk to you and kind of explore the idea of soft skills and potentially maybe teaching someone about something new.
Yeah. I hope that our listeners will pick up something new from this episode. And so, John, you've been speaking with Evgeniy. This is my first time meeting him, but you've been speaking with him. What made you go, yeah, this is the guy we need to bring on the podcast?
Well, I love characters in a positive way. And Evgeniy is one of those, man. Any look at his past, and we got some segment to let him talk about himself, everybody will be like, oh, interesting. But when you get to talk to somebody, they're the real deal. There's some magic there, right? There's some magic behind the ability to say something with confidence and people believe you. It's not convincing them. It's actually a way of life. So Evgeniy is one of those individuals I've met in my career. So kudos to you, Evgeniy.
I'm pretending really well for the last 25 years.
You've been fake. You haven't made it yet in your mind.
5 years of faking it.
So you've still been faking it.
You know what? Not many people like the idea and expression fake it until you make it. I actually firmly believe it's a very good one with a small catch. You can always fake it until you make it if you bring the bar higher, and higher. And then you're always faking something, but then you have a time when you reach this bar and you have another bar. So yes, I definitely always trying to bring the bar higher.
That's right. You sell them the skills before you have them, but sometimes that's what you got to do. As long as you have the ability to acquire those skills.
Yeah, and there's a measure of success, I think, is what you're saying there, Evgeniy.
Yeah.
Right?
You need to believe in yourself. You need to understand that it's okay, and it's okay to be uncomfortable. Sorry, it's okay to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You understand there's going to be a time you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. It wasn't working. It's like, okay, relax, breathe, do some box breathing, understand, go for a walk, come back, and start again. And then it's working or not working. And then you call a friend, then you go to ChatGPT, you read. But then you eventually, if you have the correct desire and enough motivation, it will work. And it's interesting, when me and my partner, Tony, did our first cybersecurity conference, that was in a way my test for soft skills, because I'm very passionate about skiing and snowboarding. And I was thinking, what if we bring people that ski and snowboard and cyber to the same room, give them food, a bit of beer, leave them alone and see what happened? Guess what? They all get along amazingly, because it's now can start a conversation. So when we started this, we're like, okay, let's do the conference. It's like beginning of November. We have 4 months to do it. Like, okay, we have a wheel. We have kind of 2 wheels. Let's start driving. And let's add another wheel. Let's figure out who the sponsors, where's the venue. And like, okay, we don't really know exactly what we're doing, but we know eventually we'll figure out how it's going to be working.
I would give that same description to this podcast, right? We're building the plane as we're going down the runway.
Mechanic on the
yeah.
Here we are.
Evgeny, I want to know more about your background. Give us a little bit of background about your career in technical sales engineering, and
I'll
how
do
you got
very,
into
very,
it. And,
yeah.
yeah.
I'll do a very, very quick pitch, elevator pitch about myself. I started my IT career in Navy in Israel for 5 years. And then I started my cybersecurity career in a bit strange way. I did QA in a company called Checkpoint. Still one of the probably longer and one of the biggest companies still exist. So basically dive into firewall debugging before I even understand cybersecurity. It was very interesting. I learned a lot about protocols, about traffic, about routing. Then I moved to Canada and joined one of the biggest wireless MSSPs called Horjoy Group, now called Sideris. And I spent 16 years in Horjoy Group, from 15 people to about 400 people. And I graduated. I graduated 2 years ago from Horjoy Group. They merged with a different company. And in Horjoy Group, I did professional services. I later on led several teams in professional services. As my previous manager used to say, I touch every technology. You know, if you go in a data center and you spread your hands, you can touch every technology there. But I actually work with network security, endpoint security, cloud, SIEM, with many, many different vendors as part of my role running the professional services teams in the company. Later on, I became an architect. I started doing much more pre-sales work. And even in the beginning, there was like no SOWs. You call a customer explaining what you're going to do, send them an email and come tomorrow to install it. Not happening anymore. But later on, you're like, okay, let me explain what you're going to do. Let you write an SOW. Let me explain to you the ROI. Let me explain to you why it makes sense. So I went to pre-sales and technology sales from a VAR perspective, with selling the services, with selling what we do, services, and also helping the vendors to sell to customers as well. And it gave me a very unique opportunity. I had the opportunity to hear hundreds of different pitches. Every vendor will come in, will try to pitch to us why we need to onboard them and sell to our customers. Or I will join a customer and they'll pitch to a customer. So I will able to understand, I don't like this. I like that. This is lame. I like this part. So I slowly picked my own style by listening to others, learning from my mistakes as well. Like, for example, what I realized very quickly, that if you don't know the people you're going to be talking to, you need to kind of try to adapt to everything. So you'll talk highly about what's happening. Then you quickly jump to very, very detailed, that all the tech is like, oh, he's not what he's talking about. And then you go back to the high level for everyone.
I almost feel like during those conversations, you're like you said, you're going back and forth because you're going, oh, I went too deep, I'm losing them. And then you got to pull it back to the high level so you get everybody back on the same page again. But at the same time, you still need to, you can't go too high the whole time, because then you're going to go, okay, they're going to think I'm just selling them this and I don't know what I'm talking about. So I got to go a little deeper. Yeah, that's a dance you got to do.
Interesting value prop you weaved in there too, Evgeny. That's beautiful. Is the fact that like you started your foundations. You were a cybersecurity expert the day you came into this. You were a QA guy doing stuff, figuring out how things work, the foundation of everything. And that was the basis by which you built on. To me, that's a missing piece for a lot of folks, right?
Johnny, this is in a bit of fun. Because when I moved to Canada, in my mind, I assume that everybody know how to debug a checkpoint firewall. And then you go to a customer, like, oh, we just open a CLI and do, what are you going to do? What are you going to debug? Like, yeah. It's like something common. It's like, dude, we've never done this. And then you call support, you talk to tier one, and then you realize that you know much more than the tier one, because they don't do what you do in R&D, and you don't. So it was a bit funny. Like, okay, let me set expectations. But in the same time, I was not a very good rule-based administrator. I didn't know how to create all the fancy rules, because I did like 5 rules when I was doing QA. You know, nobody cared anymore. So it's always a different perspective.
I remember that, man. And people were asking me like, John, you don't know network CIDR like configurations. I'm like, I genuinely don't, guy. I cut and paste. But to your point, I only needed to do what I needed to do to take it that step further. So yeah, that's interesting.
Evgeny, let's get into your book a little bit here. Let's start with the why. Why did you decide to write this book?
So several things. One is what I started to describe. I saw vendors pitching, and it didn't resonate to me. I didn't like the idea that a vendor will come in on the call, not every vendor, of course, and the sales will say, let me show you my presentation. I spent so much time. It's so beautiful. And the sales engineer, let me show you my demo. I spent the entire night building this demo. I'm like, did you ask the customer what they want? Did you ask the customer how they learn? Because we're all different. Some audio people, some visual people, some kinesthetic. Like, let's just ask them. Maybe they want something else. Maybe they just want to talk about the solution. Now, besides this, we have very educated customers right now. Customers don't need us for everything. They can go Google it, they can YouTube it, they can go to ChatGPT, they can understand the information. So we should assume they don't know anything, understand, ask them what they would like to do and how deep they want to go. And it also depends who we're talking to. This was number one. Number two is the idea that during COVID, we lost this ability to be physical with the people. I mean, like in the same room. Even right now, I was trying to show you how I touching every server, every device in the server room, but you don't see my hands, because you only see me.
Right.
So,
I only see what's in frame.
Yes. So in the meeting room, you have 8 people and you will see everyone. And I always like to have this example. If I'm now doing that every second, you're like, you eating spaghetti, soup, ramen? Like, no, I'm writing notes. I have a pen. Yes. But in a meeting room, physical, you will see I have a notebook and I'm writing notes. You may have several screens. So how do you really know that the customer listening to you, or they may be watching another screen and say, amazing. Well, this is a nice feature. But they're just scrolling Facebook. You don't know. So this was the other motivation. We have very minimum time for people to focus, care about you, that they will listen to your pitch and they will listen to what they want to know from you. So there was a combination of this that motivated me to start writing. And in the beginning, I wanted to write more about sales engineering and how sales engineering became not more important, but different. In the past, sales engineering will do demo, show the demo, and will sit quiet and let the salesperson do all the schmoozing and all the work. Right now, it's very complex. There's many categories. It's not easy at all. So we see the sales engineers doing much more selling, much more connection. In the same time, the salesperson need to understand all the procurement, all the legal, all the M&DA, NDAs, and all the legal stuff they need to do. So we have a shift in the industry in general. Yeah. So this is also contributed to what we can do. And I was like,
question for you.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I got a question for you. So like you're spot on. And Keith and I talk about this a lot on this podcast. If you work as a team, there's a technical seller and an AE. To your point, the AE talks about business, technical seller talks about more technical things. One thing I've been trying, and I'm just curious about your feedback on this, is before we show up and throw up. That's a term I use to describe what you say. I've worked on this demo all night. We worked on this deck all night. We're going to present it, for the love of God. Before we do that, I recommend technical sellers or AEs as a team, they stop and they just ask one question of the customer. Why did you take this meeting? That way we have an opportunity to listen to them, understand their point of view. To your point, maybe they just want to ask questions. They don't necessarily need to see the demo. How do you feel about that kind of approach? Have you thought about that yet?
Yes. And let me explain my point of view. There's a couple of things. There's 2 major things in my mind. One, who initiate the call? If we as the sales team ask for the call, then the customer took the call from a variety of reasons, but basically they probably want to hear the solution. If they initiated the call, then I think this question will be more appropriate because they're the one that reached out. Okay. Because if we're pushing, like you guys called me, I was kind of intrigued. Now it's your show. And I think there's a 2 big difference here. If the customer initiate the call, then I think they will have a better understanding why they want to call and what they want to see. If we initiate the call, the customer expects us to show us our dog and pony show. In both scenarios, I think we have an opportunity to tell the customer, Mr. Customer, there's multiple ways to do it. We like to start with a presentation, but we can do presentation, we can do demo, we can do design, or we can just talk about it. So we still put guardrails. We don't let the customer do whatever they want, and they can choose. And they may say, start whatever you want. But towards your topic, I think there's a bit of magic here. Because if the customer doesn't know why they're here, it's a clear understanding. Or not clear, it's a very good inclination they not going to buy, or not going to buy right now, or maybe just shopping. So it's also a way to probe the customer. And if I may add something, I think it's a very important quality of the sales team and related to soft skills to be vulnerable and ask the customer, Mr. Customer, would you actually have budget for this product? Do you actually going to buy? Not in the first call, later on, of course, but be vulnerable and ask this question, because ability to close the business.
I would argue your high base pay is indicative that you should be asking uncomfortable questions. Base pays alone are usually pretty high in salaries, and if you're getting paid that much, it's probably because you have to do something you don't want to do. In this case, it's asking questions that you're uncomfortable asking. That's what
part of soft skills. My view, part of soft skills. So there's two things. One is curiosity. You are curious to learn new things. Two is be able to get out of your comfort zone and do the stuff you're not used to do. As being vulnerable, get slap on your hands because you say, I don't want to do this. I don't know. I just hear it because my boss told me to be here, because my boss is part of this VC. Yes. But
dude, I've seen that before. I'm not kidding you guys. I've seen an SE who said, I get paid to do demos. He's not listening, not anything. And I'm like, those soft skills don't exist. You don't get paid to just do demos. So yeah, to your point, didn't mean to.
So let me ask you a question. What do you think the most important quality of the salesperson?
I think, I would say from past conversations, it's not necessarily a personal quality as much as a professional quality, but ability to forecast.
John?
And I know, now I'm considering the purview by which I'm going to answer this question. What's
an exam, you know?
It's an opinion, John. You're always happy to offer your opinion. Offer it now.
I'm on an interview board, but I got to have the right answer always. So
show someone a bit, John.
Yeah, I think so. If I was going to talk about a seller, I say people buy from people they like. So it's likability.
Okay. I think both of you correct. But what if I tell you that I think the most important quality of the salesperson in the end of the day is the ability to close business?
Oh, yes.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if we're hopping to the bottom,
made it so simple.
If we're going to bottom line statement it, absolutely correct. Yeah.
So you can be nice, you can forecast, but if you don't know how to close the deal, then you can have 55,000 demos and you're going to be very nice, but you never ask for PO.
We need that little bell where you could ring it, Evgeniy, where you're like, that was it right there. Make that quote. That's all we needed. No, I'm being serious, man. That you nailed it, like accurately and very fine-tuned.
So
exactly.
So in your book, what are some of the main themes that you discuss as far, because I mean, soft skills covers like that's just a very that's a lot of stuff. So how's your book structured?
Yeah, I'll show the picture again, and you'll see like small building blocks.
We're gonna make sure we link to that. We'll make sure we link to that in the show notes too.
I'll explain. You see some building blocks. So every chapter in a book is a bit of a building block. And if you think about this, when you take all the chapters and you create a building blocks or like 3D puzzle, you become a better human being. So there is chapter about how to ask questions, open questions, closed questions. There is chapter about how to work in a team right now. How do you practice? How do you work and understand, communicate with your team, sales and engineer? Do you use WhatsApp, Signal, Slack, Teams, Telegram may be a bad example right now. Shut down very sorry.
Point in time, but yeah.
to communicate and understand what's working for other person. And there's definitely a chapter about how do you actually do research? How do you understand? Like, think about that. How long it takes to go on LinkedIn, scroll on the profile, understand which school, university, and what language the person are talking. They're like, oh, John, hi. Do you know I used to play football in this college? Like, I didn't know because you found the connection. And it's a hook. And it's so important in my mind because these hooks could be the picture behind John. Okay, this could be a green screen behind Evgeniy, not in this case, but in general. Because we can have hooks or reverse hooks to connect to people. So every chapter is kind of a building block. There's a chapter about home office. How do you work with multiple screens? Why do you need a teleprompter? Why it's cool to have a teleprompter? Why would you spend $100 on the shoes and not spend $50 on a new microphone? Or add some lights as we go light up better. And there we can to parts that are not core soft skills, but I think very important. We've been trained about how to do demos. We've been trained how to create environments. We've been trained how to connect to people. What if you're afraid? What if you're afraid to present to a big number of people? You're okay to present to 2 to 3, but now you have 50 people in the room and you're afraid. Do we teach people how to overcome fear?
That's a good point, you know?
Please correct.
I'm always surprised when I hear that, just to double down on that, Evgeny. Like, I'm always shocked when I've talked to like BDRs, for example, and they can call 1,000 people a day, a little bit of an exaggeration, 100 people a day. But you put them in a room and they're like, I don't want to talk to 1,000 people. What you're doing is way more intimate, calling one person 100 times versus the 1,000 in a room, right? So you're highlighting those things. Okay.
So this is part of the basic show. What you can do, you can do breathing. You could have exercise to calm yourself down. And if you think about that, if we can do several things at the same time, and I'm not talking about multitasking. We basically can focus, we can drive on phone, listen to the radio, but in one point we can so overloaded with what we can do, more than 5, 6 things, we just don't pay attention. We just stop listening. And everybody is different. So if you're jumping on a call, you're doing a presentation, and you focusing on, I'm afraid, I'm not speaking well, I'm doing that, now you don't have enough focus points to deliver the presentation, to deliver the material, to be vocal, to be passionate, to be interested, because you somewhere else. But if you calm yourself down, if you slow down your breathing, slow down your heart rate, be in the zone, get to the point, then you'll stop thinking about them. It's like riding a bicycle. It's not something you can read and not do. It took me time to slow down. It took me time to remove the words. It took me time to understand how to use my voice better. I went to a voice trainer to understand my voice, to understand what I'm missing, to work on this. So there's a chapter about this part as well. If you don't have a podcast, how many of us record ourselves and listen to ourselves? I hated my voice for 8 months.
I still hate my voice.
Yeah, a nice voice.
I'm used to it. I've learned to tolerate it now.
I've heard I got a great voice. I tuned my guitar with Fender app. I got like a nice D minor. It's a beautiful.
That's what you've used to determine your intonation.
But no, to your point, like just to summarize, Evgeny, like when I think about it, I think your approach is absolutely correct. And you know, if you have a foundation by which to work from and build on the basics, and you build up some of these things, and you have this self-reflection to say, I have this soft spot here, let me work on it. Or I have this strength here, let me figure out how that fits in the ecosystem. The book is just highlighting how we bring all those things together to make us better holistically, to your point, help close business. Man, beautiful. Love it.
Evgeny, say I want to get better at soft skills, and I make that determined that I'm a listener listening to this podcast. I turn it on, and I'm hearing about this for the first time. What's one of the easiest things I can do today to start getting better at any of these?
Install a dating app and start dating people. I'm just kidding. So in the end of the book, there's actually SSDP, Soft Skills Development Plan. It's a 30, 60, 90, 120 days plan how to improve your soft skills. But if you're listening to this, you don't have the book, and you want to start from something, I'll recommend two things. One is to start talking to your friends and ask, like, guys, I'm trying to improve my soft skills. Tell me a bit more about myself. Do I cut you off when you talk? Am I too fast? Do I know when to stop talking and listen to you when you talk? Do I know how to ask questions? Kind of things in cyber. What do we do when we start with this customer? Let's do gap analysis to understand what you're missing. So you can do the same for yourself. Understand where you are, then to build a plan how to improve it. So this is probably the easiest things to do. The second one is to start practicing soft skills outside of your work. Simple idea. When you're buying grocery, when you are at the cashier, try to talk to the cashier, make them smile. If you make you smile, you make somebody's day much better. Didn't cost you anything. If you're standing in a line, start to talk with someone in the line about something. You have to open up. You need to find a conversation where to talk about it. You will have to use your brain and figure out, how do I do this chat? And you may not. And it's like, what do you want from me? Go away, great. But what do you lose? You have nothing to lose.
Best case scenario, you made somebody smile and you made the world a little bit of a better place. That's
Yes.
Well, and you're also learning to live in a little bit more of uncomfortableness, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, learning to live with that, that can help in so many different things, because you're willing to take risks that you may not have been before, right? We talked about that earlier. It's great for negotiation too, right? Or when you're doing discovery with a customer even, if you have the ability to sit in uncomfortable silence, somebody's going to open their mouth and give you more information about whatever it is you're trying to do.
What you're saying is you asking a question and the customer is quiet, and instead of starting to move to somewhere else, you're just like,
Yeah.
And eventually they will, yes, it's very hard. It's very
powerful.
And whoever's practiced being uncomfortable the most wins that battle. And usually it's me.
Yeah, because there's many different things, and I think it's very magical. And people are like, oh, is this book only for sales? Like, not really. Think about the idea that if you work in the office, if you're part of engineering team or other team, PM team, you have ideas. You want to change something in the company. You need to sell your idea to your management. You need to sell your idea to somebody else. So we always selling who will do the dishes, where we go for cinema. So in a way, we always need to understand what's the hook, how to connect, how to do a metaphor, and explain my idea in the language the other person will understand.
I feel like, Evgeniy, normally when we do this podcast, I feel like we're teaching. Right now, I'm learning.
I'm over here taking notes.
I'm taking notes.
I'm learning. I'm glad it's recorded.
I'm going to go tell my wife when I'm at the bar chatting these chicks up to see like how they respond. It's because I'm practicing my soft skills.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about the answers. That was a bad example. I'm like,
she's going to say, and when I punch you in the face, I'm practicing my left hook.
There was a joke about it. A gentleman comes to a beautiful lady and start talking to her. Like, hey, can I talk to you? He's like, why? I'm looking for my wife. He's like, why are you talking to me? Oh, because the moment I'm talking to somebody beautiful, she pops up right away,
See? This is, I don't know if I can try that on a grocery store cashier, but the point remains. Working in the uncomfortable, getting better, building on foundational basics can just overall lead to the success you want in selling whatever it is you're trying to sell, not just software or hardware, whatever. Yeah. Ideas. I love that.
So, Evgeniy, this is the part of the show that's bittersweet for us because it's coming up on the end of the show, but it's also fun because we usually kind of do a quick wrap-up, talk about the things that each of us learned from the podcast. I'm going to go first, so we'll give you time to think about it. I'll let you go second, Evgeniy, since you're the guest, and then John, we'll let you go ahead and be in the uncomfortable position of being last, where you have to go, oh man, they said all the stuff I was going to say.
Right.
All right. So in this episode, we talked a lot about, we talked almost exclusively about soft skills. And I still feel like we just kind of just tickled it a little bit. There's so much information that's going to be in this book. And if we're being honest, I haven't read the book yet, but I am going to order it. Can't wait to get my hands on it and read it. Because I considered myself always pretty good with soft skills. But I think, just like everybody else, there's always areas of improvement. I think this book may be able to point out where I can get even better. I really like the idea of almost doing a self-audit or gap analysis by just asking your friends about how you behave, how you speak, things like that, and just getting that sort of insight. Now, remember, there's probably going to be some bias there because they still want to remain your friends, but I still think it's a great place to start. Also, we talked about this more at the end, but just sitting in the uncomfortable is so important. And I will reiterate, for negotiations, whoever can be the most uncomfortable longest is usually going to not win, but get more information out of the other side. If you're waiting to extract information from somebody, just sit there and be quiet. You're not running a podcast. You're not a radio host, so dead air is fine. Learn to be uncomfortable. And then the last point that we hit on was always selling. You're always selling something, even if it's not a product. You're selling yourself, which is why this soft skills book is really just for anybody. Evgeniy, what can our listeners take away from the knowledge that you dropped on us today?
Enable curiosity yourself. Be curious to learn more. Get the idea that being comfortable, being uncomfortable, it's okay. But you don't have to be there all the time. You can do 80-20 rule. 80% of the time you're okay, and then you're pushing yourself out of the comfort zone for the 20%. So this is very important. And learn to understand from your mistakes. And it's mean when you do something, do kind of almost like in the army. You did something and then everybody come back and kind of talk, okay, what did we did wrong? What did we need to improve? And you're doing that not to show that you made a mistake or who was bad, because you want to improve yourself and you want to improve as a team to achieve more.
Great insights. John, what do you got for us?
I think, going last, the hardest role here, but this is where I'm exemplifying my lesson I learned. It's okay to be vulnerable. People want to help you, even if you're selling them something. So allow them to help you by being vulnerable in the situation. And that, I think, is a key element of soft skills. Being able to say, look, I didn't know everything when I came into this. Right? I don't know anything about you. Why don't you help me out, right? Like, I've made mistakes in the past where I made assumptions, and being vulnerable, you can help me help you. And I think that'll go a long way. So that's one thing I'm taking from this that resonates overwhelmingly. So hopefully that helps.
Architecting Success, The Art of Soft Skills in Technical Sales is the book. Author, Evgeniy Kharam. Again, thank you so much for being on tonight. If you enjoyed this episode of Alter the Demo Gods, please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends all about us. We're on YouTube. We're everywhere you get your podcasts. If you need somewhere specific and you go, I don't know about this podcast thing, Keith, which is really weird if you're listening to us on a podcast, but maybe you're listening to us on YouTube. Go to our website, demogodspod.com. That's going to give you everything Alter the Demo Gods, with links to all of the podcasting platforms that we are available on and links to our YouTube page. Again, thank you so much for being on. You have an open invitation to come back on again. I think soft skills is a super important topic that our listeners are really going to enjoy learning more about. Evgeniy Kharam with the book Architecting Success, The Art of Soft Skills in Technical Sales. Where can they go to get that book, Evgeniy?
Amazon.com.ca, all the Amazons. They can also go to softskills.tech.ca.com. This is the website for the book. We're going to have blogs, training later on, adaptive SSDP, the software development plan. I plan to do a quiz where people can answer questions and will create a plan for themselves. So I'm working on this part right now. So that's even going to be available. And of course, find me on LinkedIn if you have any questions.
Sounds like a Great resource for everyone. So go pick up his book, and we'll catch you here next week on Altar of the Demo Gods.